Hello, and in this video we're going to explore how you write a perfect mark answer for paper 2 of the EDEXCEL English Literature A2 examination. Now we've already gone through how to plan and what the mark scheme suggests we need to include in our answers. What does an answer actually look like? Well, here's a question. Compare the ways in which the writers of your two chosen texts present tensions within marriage. You must relate your discussion to relevant contextual factors. So, we talked about the planning method. Let's see what the answer looks like. Now, this is how we write it. Again, it's very much like a traditional essay that you're very much used to, with your introduction, which should immediately attack the question, create your debate. You might also want to put in some contextual factors to support your notion. If we're going to go through to our main body, then this is where you prove that you're right in various different ways. So 1 to 3, 4 ideas that you should be having here. You want to make sure you explore your first text, covering form, structure and language, linking contextual factors. Then however you do this is up to you. Some people do this as a separate paragraph, some people integrate it all the way through. But linking your second text, making sure then you're exploring not just how they're similar, but why they're similar or different. Your conclusion, again, reaffirm your argument. You might also want to evaluate which you felt was more effective and why, because that, again, is still creating a sense of debate. And when you've done that, we proofread our text to make sure we're correct. So, I've used 2 drama-based texts here, but the method itself is exactly the same as you would do for prose. Within both extracts, a breakdown of marriage, seemingly instigated in part by the fatal flaw of the male protagonist, is evident. Within Shakespeare's Renaissance tragedy Othello, the tragic flaw of jealousy is the reason for the collapse of marriage the audience witness, whilst within the American modern work of Albee, it appears that alcohol is the element which has brought about the almost bestial scene the audience observe. However, it seems that the character of Othello is far more physically controlling of his wife, due in part to the laws that govern marriage in the time, compared to the more psychologically controlling figure in Albee's work. So, argument's nice and clear, linked in some tiny bits of context there, but not really doing too much of it, but you just want to get across to the marker that you're someone who knows what you're doing, you know how you're going to answer this question to achieve full marks. As mentioned above, the bestial behaviour of the male protagonist in both extracts of text is presented as the overriding issue within. Shakespeare's Othello, believing his young wife to have been having an affair, publicly insults her by not only striking her, but through extremely offensive language such as repetition of a devil, suggesting that she is not just sinful, but she is actually a devil incarnate. At a highly Christocentric period in English history, this lexical choice highlights the extreme feeling of hatred the protagonist now feels towards his wife. For a contemporary audience of Shakespeare, in many ways, this would have been seemingly ironic, as the character of Othello, a Moor, would have been viewed as a devil himself and expected to act in a sinful rather than gentlemanly manner. Therefore, whilst the action of striking a woman is always shocking to an audience, Shakespeare is playing with stereotypes, suggesting in a way that the character's traditional tragic flaw is not solely jealousy, but his race. So notice how I'm linking genre here as well, and making a critical argument. Shakespeare then utilises the syllabic structure of pentameter later in the extract to highlight to the actor playing the role the anger of the figure at the time. By stressing lexes such as you, she, and turn, Shakespeare shows a character who is not only aggressive, but who is accusational in tone in a way which disengages himself from Desdemona and places the blame for his emotional state firmly on her. Alternatively, this behaviour could be highlighting the reaction of disempowered males demonstrate when they believe the female has broken away from the traditional conduct of patriarchal society, leading a feminist reader to highlight how desperate male society is to cling on to its control of the female. This argument could be said to be the case within Albee's modern plays. There's my link to my second text. I've done all my language analysis, my context, etc. for my first. George displays a similar reaction to Othello by slapping his wife Martha, as she believes he has been pouring the undergraduates. Once again, the shocking animalistic violence of the male as a reaction to a loss of control demonstrates again that the fear patriarchal society has of losing control. This is even more relevant for Albee's audience due to the rise of the feminist movement within America at the time. The lexical choices of Albee are similar to Shakespeare's in the sense that they exude a sinful character to the audience and highlight a clear belief by the male character that the female is in the wrong. The use of undergraduates, so we're still continuing on with our second text, suggests an almost paedophilic nature, and when this is combined with the fact that she is a married woman, will lead at least some in the audience to consider Martha a devil, so there's my link. The use of pause, rather than creating a sense of distance in the relationship as seen in Othello, depicts Martha as inhuman, reinforcing the uncivilized nature of the female in the eyes of the male protagonist, even though, ironically, it is a male in both extracts who is displaying the uncivilized characteristics. I've then put in a third text just to show you how you might want to do that, but you don't need to. We get the idea. Conclusion now. Although written around 300 years apart, the depiction of the male protagonist shows that the male view of women within marriage has altered little over this period. Both characters are cruel to their significant others, which is in part due to the disrespect that their partners have shown them in public. However, and as stated earlier, this lack of control shown in particular by Othello is deemed more shocking to an audience due to his physical nature of his anger, which is seen as shocking in part due to its ungentlemanly nature, but also perhaps due to the fact that this character's strength puts him at an unfair advantage over the female. You would of course have had a second, third and even fourth point, but that's exactly how we structure our work. Even though we're looking at drama text, this is how you would do it for prose. Thank you, good luck with your revision, and let's move on to our next examination paper.